And there are some other graduates from that program, not entirely for the PhD or masters, but you see that sort of is in our DNA. And I did want to acknowledge Randy here because he had a big role. And it's all quiet there. Okay, you'll never see him talk about this. The fun disclaimer before I get into it is this is not the typical Subhrendu talk where there's been 4 years of review of 2,000 papers, and then there's been a bunch of pilots, and then there is an experiment or something, and then there's too many results that you can pay attention to with the typical answer to the question. We are going to present. Does anyone have any idea what one does? This thing is frozen. Okay. So I think people in this enterprise, someone will probably take some solace from Robert Frost. There's other things we could have done in life than this the enterprise of getting out and teaching a class at 6 p.m., dashing to some airport, staying awake all night, sitting in some cramped seat, and then starting to give talks and then trying to understand. Okay. And hopefully, you know how that poem ends, right? That and it's made all the difference. And the point is, has it made all the difference? And I hope the answer is, hasn't made all the difference. We had a joint, and we all chose to do something very different from our academic peers. And we are hoping that we make a difference by making that choice and doing something different. Why do EfD style capacity building research training? And you know, most things when I'm looking at public policies, programs, projects, and I have this sort of entrance and stickers question there. But there's got to be something about equity. Just it's the fair thing to do, is the just thing to do. And all the research being produced by Cambridge, either Cambridge or Chicago, it just doesn't seem like the way to do research around the world. So it should be more equitably distributed around the world. Production of research itself. Okay. The research and I will show you some data. EfD seems to be doing reasonably well in localizing research capacity compared to a counterfactual, which we'll explain in a second. Okay? It's not doing so well. It's now hitting my in IT. Come. Now what? Especially on scholarship women. And so that probably won't surprise you given what when he has emerged and what it's trying to do. Okay. And so obviously there's Robert Frost again at the end of this thing, which is we have miles to go before we sleep as tired as everyone is, as Jim Barrett and miles. I think in terms of sort of equity, I'm not some deep justice scholar, but you can think about, most of you think about distributional justice, but you can probably think about procedural justice here. Just like access to information, so you can engage the policymaker. Is it easy to have that information if it's sitting so far away? Or are you even generating the right information? Okay. And then probably recognition of justice, but but some of these IT glitches have less time, some of these blasters, something deeply ethical and something like that. To the standard decentralization arguments about why research can be produced locally. There's all kinds of peculiarities and idiosyncrasies and heterogeneities in Tanzania and in Malawi and in Colombia and in Vietnam that it's just hard to sort of figure out sitting in New York or DC or London. It's just different. You just don't know what those peculiarities are, right? So I again don't have time to talk about type 3 errors, which is precise answers to perhaps not very helpful questions, as opposed to the really answers to the right question. Okay, so we don't know what the right questions. You get bad questions, you get poor use. I want to talk about that. And there's already a little bit of evidence. So the inclusive green economy, is that IGE? Inclusive. Yeah, I said inclusive. Program that EfD runs. Then you ask the policymakers in the room, whose research would you like to see? Look at that. Those tall bars are domestic researchers with support from international organizations. Okay. Whose analysis are you likely to trust in the design of policy instruments? Analysis by domestic research and institutional local. So that's what this is the program that I think Gunnar gives. He runs the survey in the program and then they sort of something. So that's some evidence of that. So how do we get there? You already know you're participating in one, but it's not the only way to do it. So the reason I'm standing here is, let me give you an example. So there's a couple of Sandyites out here. Priya is right there. Sandy and Priya was sort of hard to distinguish at one point, but there she is. Saudamani, so you got two ex-directors, Vishal. So most of us actually didn't come to EFD like knowing how to do this. We knew it another. And if you see what Sandy does, similar sorts of things, but a much smaller secretary, like 3 people. So then the global health gets a little worried about like how they can't do all the things they have to do. Don't do it this Passing the academic leadership, training grants, research grants, tax support, it all sound like linearity. Okay. But it's not in a fundamental way. And so you'll find yourself somewhere there, one of these logos is you, or if you're not, then you're in the other bunch of logos there. And if you're on either one, please join on these logos. Or create that one logo and give it to Gunnar so they can show off. Right? How the EFD empire is taking over the world, right? It's so you might like this diagram, but the latest and greatest is this one. So, and I think basically the fundamentals are research collaboration, policy and academic, right? So you can see various versions of this. I think what distinguishes EFD and say Sandy or the SEEP or UC or one of the other parallel system models is this part, the amount of effort put into the centers. So I think that's one distinguishing feature. So in Sandy, Saudamani's got 2 grants, but most people are just a one shot or Vishal's got grants, right? So then you never see them after that, or most people, other than these two, see more of. And so there is now that sustained engagement, and like now they've moved on to be senior fellows, and then their engagements are great unless they keep coming back. Okay? So that is one key distinguishing feature. So now this is the path we take. What is the ditch? Okay. So I'll give you some of the good news, and then we'll give you some bad news, because it's not always as you wish it to be. And we're just looking at ownership in papers, and I'll tell you what the pros and cons of that. So firstly, if you happen to tell me this, EFD thinks it writes a lot of papers. You try to ask them like what papers, half the time they can't tell you who's inside EFD and who's outside EFD. So there's a bunch of papers on their website, like God knows which papers, somehow it's made it, you have to read that. So it's data work like any other secondary data work. There's lots of EFD officers, there's type 1 and type 2 errors. Those who are in EFD are not reporting up to EFD, so you have no idea where the papers are gone. Those who are outside EFD are somehow inside of their website, so you could sit there and do that line by line. There's no like R code that some smart guy can write to tweak that. If there's nothing to the same is true for Sandy. It's true for any network, any capacity group, because it's just like we don't, our team tells us to submit things and like you whatever, right? It's the email that disappears. Who's going to do that? Mostly, if you see the papers, these are the 3 main sectors, of course. Soil, marine, essence, maybe plastics people are out there. There are other groups, and climate change is just like everything. So just let's start with the highest mode. Okay. And then we just taking some shortcuts. Like just all of us taking from emerged, like said we emerged in some conversation where do not make some outrageous claim. Say, I don't believe that. So we can actually look at some of this through data and so on. So we just started 5 journals of each of these. And these are not, thank God, like those top 5 mafia that are coming on here. So this is not that, okay? It's a part of that. There's energy economics, obviously energy policy, energy for sustainable development. And then some energy papers make it into ED, but someone's not paying attention. So it gets in there. And then there's renewable energy. Okay, these are the sustainable energy papers. Whereas forestry, fisheries, they're there in world development and other outlets like that. Okay? So world development, Alejandro can tell you what the complication with world development is like, because to construct the counterfactual. So then we go through Scopus and look at what else was published in world development, in forestry, on Ethiopia. For the Ethiopian paper that was published by Ethiopians in world development on forestry. Okay, that's the closest we think of matching. Okay, so those of you who immediately think of fixed effects, so we have a journal, sector, country fixed effect. That's basically what that's the identification strategy. I don't want a single question about identification. He already told us like give up. That's a basic now.
Colonization started.
Yeah. So for general journals like World Development, Ecological Economics, we have to like really read through that to keep that sector level topic. Yeah. Because there's a lot of papers in World Development that are not about forestry or energy. Yeah. Okay, so all those guys who are writing theory papers, you're not just sorry. Of course, it's, there's a LAX or something, so there's a paper that was published in 2010, but there was another one that was published in 2005 by someone else, open window there. None of this is, there's a little bit of coding here, but most of this is manually. So there's people trying to obviously take shortcuts to have something ready by today. And it literally was coming in like last night, in between while you guys were drinking, some of us were making graphs. So remember that. So now gets the tricky part. So we're just picking the authors and figuring out who's the local author. Okay? By local, you can have some sort of a nativity index, whatever you want to define. Are they from the place where the research is the research we're talking about. So money Nepal is like what Nepal, so that's an easy one, right? Because the name of money Nepal and he's Nepal, so that's obvious. But that is not so obvious for other people. Most of us are not in the country that they're from. So local is defined using institutional affiliation, not really. Okay, and then we go through this crazy manual exercise. Actually, thank God we have two research assistants who were able to help with that. I think I'll went over the masters long hair and also respond to trainings. And but for our business. Okay, and so that is here of the Y variable. There's 4 of these Y variables that are going to show. And in the second, I was negative. So you don't have to solve the side. But in case it's shorter than that, we're not. So sorry. Okay, authorship as a proxy. It's a proxy. Yeah. And the familiarity is cool out here doesn't understand what else means. Either you have fine or you enjoy it, or there's something. Everybody here understands what authorship is about, somewhat more or less. Okay. It's recorded. Thank God for that. Right. So those of you who are writing EfD collective and you submit the paper, those are the paid for you. As far as they're concerned. Okay. So this is it's recorded. The one, okay. The cons is if you think about just you don't have to go all over the sand here. If you are thinking about those ends about policy influence, obviously all the published paper means what, right? There's all kinds of unpublished papers that are having huge influence, there's all kinds of published papers that are not. So obviously the proxy that comes with some pros and cons. In terms of ownership of the paper, sometimes you all participated in something where you wonder what this person is doing on the paper. And sometimes you yourself wonder what do you do with that? And so then it goes in both directions. So there's a little bit of that going on. And so, so as I said, this is a starting conversation. There are other indicators we should also track, which probably will involve writing some big plea to everybody to write, submit their policy influence and no one will reply, and then you say, yeah, not really sure. Right, so that's how normally it goes. So if you want other indicators, those are harder to get, this one is easy. Okay. There's certainly questions in terms of like, do you own the research production, research capacity process just because you're an author, right? And so there are type 1 and type 2 errors there. There are plenty of people who contributed who are left out for who knows what reason. Obviously, we have some trials, but I'm not sure I can code that for all 4,000 papers. And then there's plenty of people who didn't contribute to rounds for other reasons. Okay, so, so this is where neither in the denominator nor in the numerator. Okay, so I don't look very American, but I am in American. So my papers are not okay? And nor is Marx or none of that. But it could be that we are not publishing in these very specific journals, but it's also not, right? But then someone sitting in Alice and who's German isn't, okay, because he's listed as EDR. So obviously it can take more work and you can have another line of analysis. So now that the interesting stuff comes in, all yours. Now you can say this is done. And we'll stop working on it. Thank you.
Yes, so before going into the results, just some of the potential problems. I mean, Subhrendu already mentioned, so I will not take too much time into this, but there is this issue that sometimes some researchers do not report EfD. We have tried to solve that by looking at Scopus. So we are a complete look at everything published in Scopus during this year's shortlist. So we think that's not terribly bad what we have. It might have affected probably the selection of the 5 journals, because for that we started in the West. So it's possible that we were missing some, but that this is not terribly bad. Of course, the most complicated part has to do with the counterfactual, right? And how do we create this control group? And what we have now is just everything that is not EfD. So people that are publishing on these 5 journals during the period that we're looking, research that is based or it's about one of the countries in the EfD network. So that's and then we can identify that they are not part of the EfD. So 7 million published, let's say, on Colombia and are not part of the EfD. So that's kind of how we're going to try. We could have done something kind of more refined, not in theory, like in the company with some other organization. And not some people will say, well, compared to JPAD, but JPAD have a problem that they do not focus on environmental economics so much. There will be some focus on environmental economics, many. And then for the other kind of JPAD, they focus for regional culture. So it's not that clear, that clean. Of course, there's an B, the C, etc. That's get closer to our model. It will be great if we can use that data, and we'll start knocking the door. I'm sure, as Subhrendu was saying, we also have lots of problems with the data. We will try to see if we can look into some. We don't have Gene, we don't have Erie again, because we have the journals where the 5 journals that are the highest amount of papers from the network. So Gene was not one of the 5, Erie was one of the 5. We have started looking at those. Well, the thing is that it's more kind of a different control, so kind of robust, but there's not that much EfD action there. So it's more what the other do. But that's enough. And we can look at other events with the same kind. But looking more into the results, and I will try to hurry because I want the money to talk about the results that are more related to the decomposition by sex. But looking at this authorship. So here I will just want to show. So what we have here is we have almost 4,000 papers. That's our data that we're looking at. The control is no. Then here these are columns. You can see that the numbers are small in some cases. So of course we have lots of problems with identification when we not too much into that. But that's what it is. But what I want to point here is like China, as in every other thing, China is huge. Right? China is huge here. And so it drives everything. And many people talk about China. It's a different kind of monster. So what I'm going to say, the results that we show here do not include China. So that's not because it's a strong about China. We include China because of the numbers. So this is what's happening in the rest of the. So this is probably one of the main graph of this. So what we have here is for the part indicator that Subhrendu was talking about. So here is if the first author is double. So the fraction of papers that our first author is double. And then the blue is the control. It does have confidence intervals, but it's not the definition you see, but it's kind of. So this is one group have around 35% of local first authors. No? That means it's a factor around Vietnam, Britain, who the first author is affiliated to a university in Vietnam. For EfD, we are closer to 60% of the papers have. Then the other one is the number of local authors. So for non-EfD papers, it's a little more than 1 local authors on average of the paper. We are closer to 2.3. At least 1 local author, so that's a domino, but there's at least 1. The our control group is closer to half. So half of the papers have at least 1 author. We are pretty much by definition. 1 is not 1, it's a little below 1 because you could have some cases, again, given our definition of local, would you have, for example, somebody from Costa Rica writing a paper about Vietnam, and there was nobody from Vietnam in the team, right? So that is coming from the network, it's an EfD paper, but someone from Costa Rica or Vietnam, there is no local, strictly speaking. But that doesn't happen too often, that's what we're very close to. And this is not a proportion of local to total. So it's kind of the same story, right? Again, it looks like we're doing something right. And this is not, but it's important. It's not because what I'm doing here is the same question, but by journal. But what you should see is just kind of the greens are all there, the blues are always down. So it's not because of any single journal. It's not that one journal is really pushing here. It's across all the journals. If we look at it by sector, so now the other one were the 3 sectors. There was the average, it was energy, fisheries, and forestry all together. First, this is what's happening only in energy journals, in the energy. And you see the same thing. So it's not energy in that area is being very low. The same thing happens here, but if you look at forestry, it's kind of the same story. I mean, the numbers are different, but the same story. EfD always is killing in performing better than the control. And with fisheries, so the papers in fishery will always have more first local authors than the control. They have more local authors in team. There's always somebody from the country, and the ratio is, of course, in favor of. So that happens across the tree. And again, there is no single journal that is responsible. I'm sorry, this is my country. Okay, so there is no single country that is driving these results. Not pretty much all of them are consistently performing well. And that into money. And the bad news.
I'm here to actually talk about the bad news here, to give the bad news. So we also, I mean, this is preliminary, we also disaggregate these data by sex, and it seems that we're not doing that great. So when we compare any of the four measures that we have, it seems like if the operators are doing worse than controls. Either if we measure this as a first outdoor female, not female authors, at least one female authors, and the video female total. This is when we aggregate forestry, energy, and fishery. So not so great. When we decide this by country, it seems like India is the only one that actually highlighted, looks better. Nigeria sometimes as well, but the numbers are really slow, really small. So I mean, it's just we need to be careful with how we're doing this because numbers are really small when we disaggregate it. India perhaps is the only one that is sufficiently strong. However, when we separate this by energy, forestry, and fishery, it seems that actually energy is low. When we compare the energy publications, the energy sector's publications, it seems like actually female authors are doing better in the EFD network than compared to the control group. For both, I mean, for the four of the measures that we have. For forestry, it's not looking great. It's really looking really bad. Now, when we actually look at fishery, it's even worse, right? However, don't freak out here. This is, of course, we're compiling 10 years of publications, which means that we are observing here a lack of it. And it's important to keep in mind that. However, we need, this is my final message, we need to keep working on closing gaps in our network. We need to keep working on increasing the visibility and the work of the visibility of our women researchers in the global south. But we need to keep supporting as well women researchers in our network. So when someone else is going to be standing here in that meeting in 2022, we observe our conviction. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, unfortunately, that bad news is running away because we had a flying cat. So this is really, I'm hungry to come back here and up here. But let's just anchor on the Sorry. So this was one thought with my secretary morning. So so the next how many other minutes before Jyotsna blows it away is the questions. And as you see, it's sort of emphasized more money I picked up. It's also a lag effect. The fact that the need and other things have emerged since then is obviously not going to show up as data. I mean, this is like anything that was published as of 2022. Yeah. So obviously we have a lot of work cut out. So I wanted to start the conversation about how to measure impacts. We got authorship because you can track it with the journals important, you can code, and it takes time, that itself is hard. And we made some shortcuts there, but clearly there are other things that you should be tracking. including precision and stuff, and so that's, that's something for you to consider. So again, so the reaction to how we do it, we don't really know. Well, let's start measuring some things, and then we'll know. And perhaps you get more resources to do it wrong, right? Like not do it on the side. Most of this is evening time, just hanging around, right? Fight with each other or how to compute this thing, but you got RA time or not. Yeah. Okay, I'll leave it at that. Anything you want to add here now before I take questions? Okay.
Okay, so thank you very much.
Thomas.
Yeah, okay. We have 10 minutes.
Say quickly, it seemed there were some of the results were not significant, but were big on the results. Maybe it's not quite so bad. The other thing I thought about the gender bias was it taking country considerations into account? Because we have more authors from Africa. If Africa is more male dominated, then that would be bias, our gender approach bias. Or depending on how you do it.
Yeah, there's no regressions here, there's nothing, it's just a mean difference, right? Francisco has this hand out. So we did have country specific results or center specific results, let's put it that way. We should even call it country specific results. And then there's no control variable there. This is the difference in each. Yeah. The control is the country. So those were each for country specific results, right? But there are no adjustments for what about that country is different, right? Which is, I thought, what you were implying, that there are some intrinsic things in that list. Yeah. First.
Thank you. It's very interesting. I was wondering when you were presenting this, you started your presentation talking about narrative, and I was wondering whether these papers, whether there is a way of checking whether the authors in these papers are only economists, or if they have the list of authors as the presence of, I don't know, experts in agriculture, or they talk about fisheries or foresters, or forests and so on. Because I think one of the biggest challenges that we're facing even now when we're thinking of additional funding is that we are used to tackle problems from the simple perspective of environmental economics, and no funder is going to. I mean, except I guess, but exclusive for environmental economics or economics. They give funding to problems, like issue of introversions. Requires us to collaborate. Can you do something with that?
Yeah, I think you could, with this 4,000, this is just 5 journals, top 5 journals, top 3 sectors, 10-year moving average, right? So my solution would be to have a research program where you can have a dedicated research assistants collect this systematically, and then why not? You go there, not just by male, female, Costa Rican, foreigner, but economists, generalists, and you could certainly go but he is able to do that, but he's telling to do that. That is his way beyond, right? So, but for sure, yeah.
We have the affiliation on average. We could be able, I think it will take some time, but we can check.
Because when you go one journal, 2 more journals deep, it becomes some other journal that it's totally interdisciplinary and things like that, right? So aqua something, and we don't have any instinctive way to distinguish who's like any. So we stopped at the things that we sort of recognized. Even like the top journal, it's gone, or I think it's aquaculture and the fisheries people would know. It's not one you will, other than the thought of also many. Yeah.
Yeah, super interesting, thank you. Just a couple of questions. I think alluding to what Thomas was saying, I don't know if there's a way to identify the pool, the women sort of in this discipline, broadly speaking, maybe including some other disciplines, full in these countries, and then we're picking up some representative sample of that food. So that I don't know if you can get that data, but that would be useful to have. But I'm also curious about the papers and the topic areas of research that the women authors are working on, and whether there is something to that. You know, I don't know if you have thousands, you may not have thousands of papers written by women, and you might be able to eyeball them and see if they are motivated by some types of questions, or if they are just following whatever the norm is to valuation. You know.
I think that's a very great suggestion, and that's something that we could definitely look into, and that I will talk with Maria about that. She's kind of leading that part of the analysis, but we can do it because when the advantage of using Scopus is that now that we have the data, we have everything, and we have the DOI of each one of the papers, so we can download the abstracts, the whole paper. So again, the main constraint right now will be, we need someone to help us with it. So I can use fighting this and that, time pressure to show it. But I think that's something that's clearly something that will be very interesting. The other thing about knowing like how many women are in the different countries, and then some effort now to create that in different, like the International Economic Association is trying to create more of that. Right? We don't have that information now. Might come.
Also wondering if Erin can help you use some AI to pull out.
Yeah, that's for sure the way to go. I mean, especially if we're going to look into the. I mean, I do think also about the policy. I mean, we could also look at the disciplinarity, but if they mention policy implications, how much do they mention policy implications? That will have to go certainly by artificial intelligence would be the question.
Yeah, well, she's getting the other question. I think we have. One way we have some control over the process is that we recognize the sectors or the main journals of those sectors. So I think you're talking more about a topic which could be cross-cutting, like livelihood, which could be, across the thing. So that would be a different way to slice. Then what is the possible outlets for livelihood? Like, as you know, from submitting some of these things, it's you start with brand thinking, where can you submit those things? And yeah, so that's a huge pool. So this makes the construction of the comparison. Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much. I think it's very good to see the scientific parts of EfD. So that's a very good start. But I hope we can push it further. Especially when I look at the application distribution across the sectors, it's very great. But to me, anyway, application is a function of a number of parameters, right? The manpower, the amount of we were used to allocate for these sectors, and then the collaboration especially. I remember during my time, some senior people they used to go to one direction, right? So to me, it's good to take the relative numbers, at least the cost effectiveness. Very good start from some per capita publication. The center that really tells you really well. We are not comparing centers, but at least if you want to know the returns to estimates and the importance of collaboration and networking, taking the cost effectiveness and it's very good. Even if you can take it further, because we know how much resources we are allocated for the center, so we can also monitor it, measure. That's what. The other thing is, I think it's very good. I think I can push on other community with some other equivalent institutions. How much it has invested, how much other institutions are invested, and then see to what extent the impact of your FD is globally. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Vinay. I think hopefully someone is taking notes here about the different indicators. I would say the only thing I would separate out a little bit is that cost effectiveness is one indicator, and sort of the collaborative is not necessarily cost effective. Instead, I would try to measure something different because you can be highly cost effective and totally uncollaborative. Very good, right? So I think but those are both indicators, that signals something that different people value differently. I think we have, sorry,
Yeah,
one second.
yes, so I just wanted to say that